we have seen performance of both European equity markets and Asian markets, particularly China, dramatically outperform U.S. equities so far year to date. And there's actually a lot of structural reasons for that. I'd like to show you one specific stock that to us stands out quite notably. This is a pretty famous European company, and its main ticker is actually on the New York Stock Exchange. But before we do that, let me just quickly give you just a little bit of an idea so you can kind of see what's going on. This is, for example, the Vanguard FTSE European ETF. So this is kind of a concoction of European equities, both large cap and lower end of the capitalization structure, different countries, and so on and so forth. It's a multi-year chart, and I think anyone that's with a pencil and a ruler can probably figure out that this is a breakout here on the weekly chart in the making. So something that's been basing for a few years and is looking very constructive. Now, there's one company, and you might even own a pair of sneakers of them. The company is called On Holdings AG. It's actually a Swiss company. And notice that Switzerland's actually not part of the EU, just as an FYI. It's in European Economic Area, but it's in the middle of Europe, but it's not actually part of the EU. So obviously, it's part of the European economy. It's connected very closely in terms of its commerce and so forth. But this company, On Holdings, they sell shoes, sneakers, and sports stuff. It's a very interesting story, not only from the chart, which I'll show you in a second, but also fundamentally. So interesting about this company is that most of its sales are actually in the United States. So if you look at the sales breakdown, now this is 2023, and I would be shocked if it was different in 2024. But you look at this pie chart here, and you can see most of their sales, about 60% is in the U.S. If you look at what they're selling shoes for the most part. Now, what's really interesting as far as my analysis is concerned is if you look at the year-over-year growth, that's not only been happening but projected going forward, it's actually accelerating. That's the kind of stuff we want to look for. You want to look for an acceleration in a trend when it comes to equity. So if you look at these dots here, and I realize it might be a bit small to see, the company grew its top line 20% last year. So from 23 to 24, top line grew from about 2.15 billion to about 2.54 billion. If the forecasts are right, and of course that's always the big assumption that we have to make, this company is set to increase its top line not by 20%, which was the rate of change for the past couple of years, but by 30%. So we're seeing a reacceleration in the rate of growth. That's very constructive, and that's the kind of stuff you want to see. Now, when we go to the chart, what we're seeing here, and this is short-term, the stock is getting very oversold. It is now getting back to its 200-day moving average, which is this red line on your screen up here, which has been a pretty decent area of support last year at least. And when we look at this through the lens of sort of a multi-year analysis, now this company didn't go public until 2021, mind you, the U.S. ticker. So what we can look at here, and we can draw these lines, depending on how accurate we want to be, but you can see it's a stock that is acting very well, and I'm actually going to make this a weekly chart so you can see this even better. If we now were to connect the absolute top lines of this, you would see that on a weekly closing basis, which is when we would have to take this line, you can see what we've done is we've basically retested now support, which we also did back in November of last year, and again taking the fundamentals into consideration. And by the way, one other thing, and this is something that I think is really interesting, if the European economy is accelerating, and they might start, there's actually, they're doing a lot of stuff over there with reinvesting heavily, or at least that's the plan, in the defense, and that has a lot of stimulative effects. You could also see this company start to see a lot more sales coming out of Europe, right? And so that's something that would be an additional tailwind. So I think a really interesting company here positioned not only in the United States but also in Europe. Ticker symbol ONON.